And another important really issue we looked at is that, again, successful de-radicalization programs have always been or occurred in societies where civil society is playing a very important role, where civil society is dynamic, where civil society is strong. Absent or where such societies are weak, we have seen the family is filling this vacuum, especially in countries like Saudi Arabia and Yemen, for example, where the family is stepping in to fill the vacuum and therefore playing a very important role in de-radicalization their sons. And therefore, we feel that the family should be incorporated in such programs because they can have a tremendous influence over their sons. And finally, we looked again at an issue just been really raised, the relationship between national de-radicalization programs and the global environment. And we feel that they cannot be isolated from one another because one of them can sometimes actually work to undermine the other. The second really question we looked at, what are the ingredients of successful de-radicalization programs? What are the major components and elements that we have come across while studying the most successful de-radicalization programs? There are several really elements. The first one of them is religious and spiritual program. And this is really important because you want to take away legitimacy of violent extremism from radicals. Most radicals rely on certain ideology in order to justify their actions. And therefore, religious and spiritual programs can be an important element in delegitimizing their violent strategies. Secondly, psychological programs are also important. You want to study the psychological motivations of individuals and their psychological status as well before you release them into society. Thirdly, we feel education has been extremely important in educating individuals and at the same time in changing their ideologies. And that education should go beyond just religious education into other sciences, math, and even philosophy in order to prepare those individuals once they are released to be able to rejoin their societies successfully. Again, most successful elements or programs have also incorporated the families into them, and they have actually relied rather heavily on the role of the family in order to de-radicalize and even monitor their sons and family members once they are released, and therefore making the program itself much cheaper than if the state had to do all the monitoring. Another important really element we've noticed as well is that there's some recreational activities. The Saudis have been pioneering in this really factor. They have introduced several games which are played between both the officials and the radical individuals inside the prisons, inside the rehabilitation centers. And the idea here is really to create again some trust and intimacy between the two and to prove to the radical that the state officials and the state in general is not really their enemy, and that therefore they are also concerned for their own interests, and therefore they even do several things that the state wouldn't even do with other individuals. And then another really final thing is we have also noticed, and this is mainly coming perhaps from the Saudi program again, which is now lauded as one of the most important and successful program in the world, is art. They are allowing individuals, or they're using art to allow individuals to express their feelings. And there's, the notion has been that, at the very beginning of the program, and at the very end, comparing what they actually were drawing at the beginning and at the very end, is completely different. And therefore, it provides another perhaps way of evaluating the success of this program and the change, internal change, that can actually occur inside the individuals. The final question we looked at is the rather important question, which you also raise, is how do you really evaluate the success of these programs? We have looked at some of the difficulties involved in the design of the methodologies involved in evaluation and effectiveness. We have also looked at how such methodologies can be designed and what measures exactly we should be looking at. The major point really came out here, we all agreed on this, is that recidivism alone should not really be taken as the most important factor while evaluating the radicalization programs, simply because a large number of formerly radicalized individuals, once they have actually been released, they have been re-radicalized as a result of influences in the new environment they face, rather than as a result of factors they have actually been facing inside the prison itself. These were the key three questions we looked at, and our conclusion is that actually de-radicalization under certain conditions and circumstances can work rather successfully. And that secondly, however, we should not really look at de-radicalization as an end in itself. De-radicalization is a means towards an end, and that de-radicalization should be accompanied company, they should be followed by programs after release in order to enable individuals and groups to rejoin their society successfully. 5 minutes exactly. I'm
Brilliant.
very conscious.
Thank you for that 5-minute tour de force, and thank you to all the chairmen. It's very hard to synthesise such a long day's discussion so briefly, and I think you did very well in doing that. We've had a fantastic day so far. Thank you to our participants in the various groups. Clearly there's been a very rich and wide-ranging discussion. I'd personally like to thank our staff as well, who've been working away behind the scenes, and in their honour, if I could emphasise one thing to you before tomorrow morning when we register again, it's keep your name badges. And if I don't say that, they won't forgive me. But I'd like to thank our chairman again and thank our participants and the panellists for the last 2 sessions. Thank you very much.